What's going on, everybody? So I'm gonna use this as the intro to every video in this series. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, share these videos for me. I would greatly appreciate it. All right, y'all, if you're watching these videos in order and you've already seen this introduction, you don't need to see it again. Skip to this time right here and start the video. First off, watch these videos from the very beginning. Watch them in order so you don't get lost on them. Second off, I want to give credit where credit is due. I use a King James Bible, which is the only Bible. These other versions will misquote scripture, change words that don't need to be changed, and there's verses that are left out. We'll get into why you don't do that later on when we start going through the Bible. So get a King James Bible. I use a Rock of Ages study Bible. I get a lot of my stuff through the study part of this study Bible. It helps out tremendously. Brother Joe Darby, my pastor, I'm sure I will be asking him all kinds of questions doing this. I listen to Brother Chris Simpson and Brother Ricky Gravely on podcast. A lot of their preaching helps me out with me doing the Bible study. I use Blue Letter Bible on my phone. It's an app you can get. It's free. It helps tremendously. If there's something you don't know the meaning of, you can click on it on there, and it'll show you the meaning of it. I hope you enjoy this video series. I'm doing this for a couple of reasons. One, it helps me study my Bible. Two, if somebody is lost, if these videos can help bring them closer to Jesus so that they might get saved, and that would be fantastic. If that happened to one person, this would be worth it. You know, this also may help somebody out there that's struggling with studying and understanding a few things. You know, maybe this will help them with that and help them study a little bit more and understand things a little bit better that pertain to the Bible. Now, let's get into the video. Welcome back, everybody. Hey, I'm sorry for the background noise now. I got little man inside in his playpen playing and got the TV playing, and I think the dishwasher's going back there. So if it's picking up a bunch of background noise, I apologize. Anyways, you know, real quick before we get started, go on ahead and say a prayer real quick and ask God to give you wisdom and knowledge as you read His Word. We go through it and study it. Go on ahead after you do that and read Matthew chapter 2. Let's get into it. First off, I do appreciate y'all watching these and the comments I've got and the shares on these videos. I really appreciate it. All right, so Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. Starts out, Herod the king learns of Jesus being born. This troubles him along with all Jerusalem. Herod gathers all of the chief priests and scribes to demand where Christ was born. Scribes not only made copies of the law, but they were also guardians. Therefore, they were familiar with the Old Testament scriptures and would have known where Jesus Christ would have been born. So that's why he called them to ask him where he was born. So verses 5 through 12, it starts off with another Old Testament prophecy being fulfilled. And it's going to be Micah 5 and 2. Let's turn to that and we'll read it real quick. Sorry if that angle changed a little bit. I had to look up on how to pronounce something. So we're in Micah chapter 5, verse number 2. But thou, Bethlehem, Ephrathah, no, that's probably not pronounced right, but that's about as close as I can get it. Though thou be little among thousands of Judah, yet out of thee shall he come forth unto me that is to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth have been from of old, from everlasting. So that's talking about Jesus Christ. All right, so that's the wise men telling him that Jesus is going to be born in Bethlehem. And that's where they get it from the Old Testament, from Micah. That's where they got that from. So when Herod heard this, he asked the wise men what time the star appeared and sent them to Bethlehem to search for Jesus under the pretense that he wanted to come and worship him also. Which we'll learn here in just a minute that that's not the case. When the wise men found Jesus, they fell down and worshiped him and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. God warned the wise men not to return to Herod, and they departed into their country another way. So God warned them in a dream, and don't return to him. So in verses 13 and 14, the Lord told Joseph to flee into Egypt with Jesus and Mary, because Herod would seek to destroy Jesus. So Joseph took Jesus and Mary into Egypt. Verse number 15, they stayed in Egypt until Herod died. So this is going to speak about another Old Testament prophecy being fulfilled. It's going to be Hosea 11 and 1. All right, so flip with me to Hosea chapter 11, verse number 1. When Israel was a child, then I loved him and called my son out of Egypt. All right, so this is kind of mind-boggling to me if you actually sit down and think about it. Again, this is stuff that happened. This is not just a book. So it says, Herod had all the children that were in Bethlehem and the coast thereof that were 2 years old and under killed. Just think about that for a minute. Having that kind of a evil heart to where you go and kill every child 2 years old and under. That's a lot of death. So speaking to this, verse 17 and 18 are talking about another Old Testament prophecy being fulfilled. So let's go to Jeremiah 31 and 15. All right, so in Jeremiah chapter 31, verse number 15, it says, Thus saith the Lord, a voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation and bitter weeping. Rahel, weeping for her children, refused to be comforted for her children because they were not. So that's an Old Testament. That's, again, them talking about what's going to happen in the future, a prophecy of all those children getting killed. So in verses 19 through 22, the Lord tells Joseph that it's safe to go back into Israel, that all that sought to kill Jesus were dead. When Joseph came into the land of Israel, he heard that Archelaus, the son of Herod, reigned. So Joseph became afraid because that was Herod's son. Of course, Herod wanted Jesus dead bad enough to where he went and killed all the children from 2 years old and under. So see why he was a little afraid there. Being warned by God in a dream, he turned aside into parts of Galilee. All right, so verse 23 says, And he came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophets, he shall be called a Nazarene. So this is speaking of Old Testament, so it's possibly talking about Isaiah 11 and 1. So y'all flip with me to Isaiah chapter 11, verse number 1. It says, And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. So what's that talking about right there is the rods could also be called a netzer. So that's where that's coming from. All right. I know this wasn't another long one. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I'm trying to keep these, somewhere in between 10 and 20 minutes. If they go longer than that, I may do 2 videos on them. But I appreciate y'all watching. We'll catch y'all on the next one.